Your flow state might just be getting hijacked. Keep watching.
Yeah, I'm inspired. I'm inspired.
Hey there guys, how's it going? My name is Sumat Chatterjee from the Flow Zone Academy, and I'm a flow state coach, which means that I help you feel better and perform better. Today, in this video, I'm going to talk about how your flow state might be getting hijacked, okay? It's being hijacked by different companies, it's being hijacked by society. You're being veered off into conventional wisdom and a specific path into a hamster wheel life where you stop looking at the bigger picture and how things are placed within a system, an organized system, right? So just like we have the nervous system or the circulatory system, we function in society through systems. And if we are generating chaos within a system, it's going to have to rapidly improve itself because there's always a disorganized order. One of the things you got to be aware of is the labels that society places on. Okay, one of the things that we've got to understand is that we as society, we really don't know how to treat addicts. Okay, flow state is one of the most addictive states on the planet, so start to understand this. A lot of people are getting into flow state as a way to escape the present moment, not to be in the present moment and live there. Now, of course, we can look at flow as this temporary high, but actually it's a gateway into a life of well-being and happiness. So it can be like this kind of chasing a pipe dream type of mentality of like, I'm getting the dopamine hit from the addiction, from what I'm doing, but this long-term gratification, right? This eudaimonic happiness is missing. The sense of really understanding that you have to value your purpose over the pleasure. This kind of mindset, it goes deep into psychology and it goes deep into the philosophy, right, of ancient cultures, of Stoicism, of Taoism, right? And we start to understand that level of discipline through our modern lives, through these modern templates, which is we experience consciousness through our physical bodies, through our brain, right? And our senses, right? So basically we perceive ourselves in order to control ourselves to stay alive, okay? This is a mass illusion in a sense where there is this panpsychism idea of consciousness that states that everything is connected. Consciousness is ubiquitous, it's everywhere, it's all pervading. Or this other idea, it's almost like taking some medicine, it's like if you take too much of this medicine, you're going to start to kind of put yourself into a rabbit hole. The fact of simulation theory, or that consciousness by itself is an illusion, it's just a mechanism, right, that we're placed in. So if we go to the idea of, consciousness doesn't really exist, that's all there is. So in a sense, it kind of really puts you into a weird negative head spiral. So instead of that, like thinking philosophically, we have to think of practical solutions to get ourselves into the flow state and understand the paradigm of what the addict is really craving, right? That sense of belonging, that sense of connectedness, that sense of community. But actually what they're getting is the opposite. They're getting labeled as miscreants or junkies or addicts, and there's this backlash against it, right? We have to understand that obesity is an addiction. It's an addiction to food, but where does that craving for food come from, right? For the processed chemicals and the candida that's kind of placed in all this junk food and stuff. So we've got to understand really like, okay, there's a bigger problem, right? The problem we think is the problem is not the problem. Where mental illness and, people getting into the mentality of craving, of wanting something, of needing to belong, of needing to feel this escape, right? And I know this is generally for men, right? I'm speaking to men here when I say that you men, you want to experience escape. Not in a bad way, not in this, you want to get to that Zen master state, that silence, that eternity, that feeling of stillness. You want to access that, right? But we might do that as men through different ways: drinking, video games, porn, whatever we do. Like, we use these, band-aid solutions to actually access that higher state of consciousness, or that silence, or that, eternity, whatever you want to call it, that Shiva energy, as opposed to that Shakti, right? Radiance of the feminine. We use these pseudo vibrations, in a sense. This is the kind of a term that I've labeled. We use these little outlets to try and access that. But our craving is actually a craving for oneness. It's a craving for connection. It's a craving that, hey, I feel loved and I belong. And I'm okay and I'm valued. And I'm taken seriously and, I'm important. At the end of the day, we all want to be validated. Which is why we clap for people when they're doing something which they're efficient at, they're competent at, because it shows us that mastery, it shows us that dedication through their craft. But guess what? If you see that and you value that, that means that you have a potential to do that yourself, because how else would you recognize that as a superpower, right? Stan Lee said this, right? Stan Lee's the guy who, created all those Marvel superheroes. He said, the first thing you have to do if you're going to pick your superhero is you have to pick their powers, okay? You have to pick their powers and then go off of there. So I'm asking you, the audience member watching this video, what is your power? What is your genius zone? What is your flow state signature essence? What is your flow code? Where is it that you can tap into that deepest, most part of yourself and awaken to the best version of you? And I want you to really think with this, because the labels that society has put upon you is going to start to constrict you. This is why, I have an issue with when people get labeled a certain diagnoses. But, of course, we label it to understand it, but also we don't recognize the impact that it might have on someone's psyche to know that, oh, wait, but no, I just have BPD, or I just have this, Asperger's or whatever, right? What that does is it starts to form a storyline around that reality. Just came back from the jungle, as you know, for 2 days, right? And one of the biggest things that I've noticed is, that feeling of being on edge. There's landslides that can happen anytime. There's, the growling of like animals in the jungle that I've heard, and things like this. It put me into a heightened state, a sense of horse blinders, like a ferocity, like a SWAT team level focus, right? Where my mind went, okay, what can I do to survive in this moment? Like, if anything happens, right? And it got my mind to think that, okay, this is very, very different than the big city. The howling of street dogs in Kolkata, very different from the howling of wolves, right? Up in the mountains. I've started to understand that this label that I've given myself growing up of I have anxiety, right? Could it be those situations were introducing me to a life of adventure, a life of novelty, a life of newness, new experiences, which I had to adapt to. And so what I thought was, anxiety was just my self-preservation mechanism, a protection shield from that dangerous situation I could have gotten myself into. So it was a signal, right? It was like a siren of a police car. It was just a signal for me. Hey, I don't have anxiety, I'm just living in my edge. And as a man, you got to live at your edge. So really start to understand this, right? That you can actually decide your own self-definition for the label that's been placed on you. Okay? So if someone says, oh, you're an addict, or you're a criminal, or you're a loser, or you're whatever it is, whatever label they give you, you are the person who takes off that label and places a new packaged label on top of that label. And you're allowed to have that new self-definition override the old label. For instance, are you actually a loser? Or are you a winner in transit? Right? Because it's one thing to say that, hey, I lost at something, like that's fine. But to identify yourself as a loser, that's a different. Now you're just generating a storyline. Because every winner lost a couple of times in order for them to gain the skill set in order to win. So we really have to watch how we speak and our words, because they form the flow state reality. The words are like the coding of this video game. So we have to be really conscious of our word choices. So in a sense, if you notice, like any different industry has their own jargon. They've created their own language so they can thrive around that specific area or that niche. There's an entrepreneurial vocabulary. If you have, the SWAT team, they clear, they have their own vocabulary. The medical field has their own jargon. So it's important to understand that if you want to thrive in your own niche, in your own field, you've got to create your own language around it. Inside jokes with the tribe. You've got to be a wordsmith and border control of your own reality. Okay? You have to be the one who's in charge of the country, which is you, your body, your mind. You have to be in charge. Nobody else is going to do that for you. Otherwise, people will invade your country and take you over. This is what I mean by you've been invaded, you've been hijacked. Right? Through advertisements, through different people telling you things that you've chose to believe in, and you've been lied to. So it's time to come back to your own truth. It's time to come back to your own purpose. Time to come back to your own flow. Ido Portal said that we are all teachers. It's time to really understand that. We are all teachers in our own way. So what are you teaching? What is your curriculum? This is a question I ask a lot of my clients when they come back for many sessions. I got this from my business coach, Joe, who's a protege of Jay Abraham, right? If life was a classroom teaching you lessons, what have you been learning? A really good question. A very powerful question that you start to recognize, hey, yeah, what have I been learning? Like, what has life been teaching me? Yeah, sure, there are mistakes and things that I've done, but what are the lessons that I've gained from that? You see, we as people, we get to a breaking point and then we want to change, right? And that's completely valid. We get familiar to a way of living. But understand, if you're a flow state catalyst, if you're an artist, you're going to be misunderstood. Because maybe you're inventing something new. You're a pioneer in your own field. People are going to be skeptical. What is that guy doing? Why is he making videos? Oh, whatever it is. You're going to get that. For me, I've reframed it. Every time that I get backlash, I know that I'm on the right track, because the polarity opposite is true as well. Or someone equally watching that video and thinking the complete opposite opinion to that person as well. I know this because of the law of duality, the law of polarity here. Whenever I get some people going, hey, wait, this is kind of off or whatever. Now, if I'm at a genuine good place and they're part of my inner circle and tribe and they tell me, cool, hey, yeah, man, you're right. I let myself slide with that one. Thank you for bringing that up, Hey, homie, I really appreciate that. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. That level of self-trust, and that's what we do as people. We self-actualize, we self-improve. But what tends to happen is we become defensive people. We become very not open to criticism. And I've noticed this pattern in myself as well. When people criticize me, I started to take it to heart. But guess what? There's no one can criticize you besides yourself. You are the one that is being critical of yourself. They're just reflections. They're just pointing it out to you. So when I see in my environment that, hey, they're pointing out this area, this insecurity of mine, I know it's just a reflection within. It's like I have set up my cast list of actors, right? And I've suddenly cast this person to point this out to me in that very moment for me to learn something. TPM mentality. If you guys haven't gotten my book TPM, click the link in the description. Go get that. Because it's going to give you a pathway, a model to reinterpret and re-understand the world, how you can take the power back into your own hands as a movie director of your own life. It's time you become the hero of your storyline and not be the extra in other people's movies. If any of this resonated with you, if you're interested in coaching with me, let me know. A lot of different spots are booking up from the next year, so try and get to me as soon as possible, okay? That's all I'm saying. My circle is small because this information is valuable. Have an amazing day. May the flow be with you. And stay legendary. Let's get it today, Upward Spiral Gang. May we never be the same again. Hit that subscribe button, notification bell if you haven't done so already. Boom.